So this presentation, when I was starting to put it together, what you guys will know is we're going to start building off of these trainings, basically engine by engine. So this specific presentation is specifically implementing the front end appointment setting engine and how that leads into obviously scaling revenue, profits, etc. So real quick intro on us. There's a few people from Sales Momentum on the team that are here. About in 2018, I started by basically taking over sales teams. It's kind of how I started in this space. My entire background is building sales teams specifically. Before I knew anything about systems or tech stacks or automation or anything along those lines, I would go into companies right around the 2019 mark and basically take them over bar rescue style. So think they had a team that was falling apart. We'd come in, basically take it over, rebuild it, scale it up. And then I'd move on to my next project. And in doing that, we had quite a few larger case studies that kind of set the tone for just us becoming known in the sales team space. Fast forward, we were hiring a lot of companies to come in and do our system builds for us. And those projects failed probably about 95% of the time. Meaning we spent a lot of money. We were telling them what we needed to do more than them actually telling us what we should have in place. And eventually it just kind of became this thing where they'd give us a scope for 3 to 6 months and we would get nothing done. So around the 2020 mark, we started taking those projects in-house ourselves. And what we realized is because of our background with specifically sales teams, we were able to build much faster and more effectively to what we were actually trying to accomplish. In doing this, we kind of built on everything: Salesforce, Close, Infusionsoft. If anybody remembers Infusionsoft, custom CRMs, you name it, we were kind of building off anything. It was kind of the wild, wild west in terms of tech stacks. And we had a few projects specifically on HubSpot that were much more successful than others. So transitioning into kind of focusing on the systems point, we decided, one, that we could scale companies faster if they had some of the leadership and some of the sales team specifics in place already. And we were able to go in and focus on the system. So that's what we did. Since that transition, we're going on just over 250, 300 companies served. We've broken a lot of records, and we are 100% focused on HubSpot and sales systems. So just some of the companies we work with, you guys can look at this. We've worked with larger companies, 500 million plus. We've worked with smaller companies on the 1 to 2 million a year mark. Okay. Moving on. So first thing I want to point out is as I go through this presentation, there are going to be some areas that get very much into the weeds. And then there's going to be some areas that are more high level to help you guys understand how this process actually can be done, replicated, and how you guys can actually do it yourselves. Okay. So the first thing I want to point out is really the number one reason that people get this wrong is they just overcomplicate everything, right? They're using too much tech. They're solving problems, basically knee-jerking and building as they go, right? They never actually sit down and design what they're actually trying to accomplish with their systems, meaning start to finish before they actually go in and build, right? And there's a lot of problems that this actually creates. But when you're looking at a system or any kind of engine, which what we would call it, right? There's input, which is going to be what you're putting into the system. So leads, money, clients, right? There's velocity, which is going to be your conversion metrics, right? So your lead to booking percentages, your show rates, your close rates, how much you're prospecting, whatever the case may be. And then you have your output, right? And at the end of this presentation, my goal is for you guys to have basically the exact architecture and step-by-step setup for you guys to build the front end of your system, okay? So the inputs, the velocity, all of the different pieces that go under that velocity piece so that you guys can actually build a sustainable and profitable machine, right? And how those outputs lead into the next couple engines, okay? If you're on HubSpot and you want to figure out exactly how to get the most out of it, we hold webinars and masterclasses all the time, going very in-depth to this content, step-by-step breaking down exactly how you can get the most and build the systems that we're talking about. Go ahead and click the link and we'll notify you when the next webinar is. Now, before I go any further, if you guys have been around me, I recommend these books all the time, okay? And one is going to be the Sales Acceleration Formula. If you guys haven't read it, read it. It is basically the story, an in-depth story on how HubSpot basically built their sales machine, their engine, all of their different pieces from recruiting to training to systems to you name it. Okay, the second piece is going to be 10x is easier than 2x. Okay, and that's kind of what the basis of this presentation is around, right? When you're looking at your systems as a whole, whether you're a CMO or sales director, a CEO, founder, whatever the case may be, right? A lot of people get stuck in the 2x opportunities, right? Meaning they're working on 10, 15, 20, 30 different things each month or each quarter, right? That really only have about 2x capabilities, right? So designing a new funnel or creating new ads, or they're working on 10, 20, 30 of these different things, as opposed to just stopping and figuring out where the 10x area of opportunity is within the system or within the initiative that they already have, right? Meaning they can focus on less and they can get a lot more out when done right. Okay. So recommend it, do it, just get them. I promise you, read them. It's going to change the way you think about anything, but it'll help you, especially change the way you think about systems, specifically for sales teams. Okay. Now, this entire presentation is focused on one metric that's overlooked by a lot of sales teams. And it's a problem that most companies have. They don't necessarily know, or they know it's an issue. They just don't quite know how to solve it. Okay. And it's costing you guys millions. If you're doing more than, a few million a year, or you guys are starting to ramp up, this will cost you millions, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars year over year over year, if you don't take the time to actually sit back, focus on it, look through it, make sure it's basically set up to the best of your ability. Okay. Now, quickly going through, this is the same thing that we implemented for SCUP, 100K in additional profit 30 days later. Same thing, or a piece of the thing that we put in for B&B. They're now doing $1 million months, right? And the whole basis of this, again, is it's one metric, right? We're just looking at one piece and how we make that metric as strong as possible. Before we look at increasing ad spend or figuring out new initiatives, drive more leads or hiring reps or anything along those lines, we want to make sure that this is in place to the best of our ability, okay? So that's the entire focus of this presentation. Now, that metric is going to be lead to booking percentages. Okay. If you look over on the left side here, right, company A and future state are exactly the same. There's one metric that we increased, just one. Okay. We're not going up and down the chain here. We're not looking at 10, 15 different things. The only metric we're looking at is this lead to booking percentage. And the only thing that changes here is we go from 10% to 15%. Okay. Very, very small jump in terms of what we focused on and how we got the jump in terms of metrics, right? Massive impact, right? We added about $1.461 million over annualized, right? By keeping this percentage at 15 instead of 10. Okay. Now, what happens a lot of the time is people will look at these numbers, say they're okay, we need to generate more leads, more leads, more leads, and that's their plan to scale. So they're spending more money, getting same or less results, right? And that is their plan basically in terms of focusing on how to scale, right? So just by increasing this number, right, we're lowering booked cost, so call cost. We're lowering our CAC by about $842, and we're increasing ROAS from 4.8x on the front end to 7.24x, okay? Now, just one thing I want to point out, and you guys will see this, especially if you work with us or you have worked with us. Moving forward, we've kind of put in this place or initiative and kind of principle is we always want to focus on the 10x areas whenever we're working on systems, right? It's so easy to get in the weeds and try and work on everything. We want to identify one area and we want to focus on that area until we're very, very confident in it. Meaning a great practice to follow and something that we've implemented for ourselves is focus on one metric per month or quarter, see how much you can improve it, start with the metrics as close to the point of entry in whatever system you're working on as you can. Meaning lead to booking is about as far up the chain as we can go, which means it's going to affect everything post that metric in the process, right? We're going to get better numbers on the entire downline because we're focusing on the metric that's as far up the chain as we possibly can, okay? Now, according to Salesforce, some numbers that I found online, right? The lead to booking percentage within this space typically is around 10% coming from paid sources or organic sources, right? What we found across the 250 plus companies that we've worked with is in many cases, that number is only looked at in about a 90-day interval, right? If you go over that time period, meaning you go over 90 days, so let's talk about half a year or a year, that number is actually much more close to about 5 to 8%. right? In terms of lead to booking, which I'm sure you guys can imagine is a massive waste or opportunity loss. Okay. So we're going to talk about the four main issues real quick with this and what we're going to solve today. First one, lack of proper entry points and delegation, right? Same leads, some leads enter the system, some don't, right? There's a complicated way. People are creating forms, trying to trigger everything through that process. There's duplicates all over the place. Data is not clean, right? Every time you guys have an entry point, that's your best place to start formatting everything and keeping it clean, right? Number two is going to be lack of accountability or activity, lead scoring, prioritization. So for example, a lot of teams that we see, they have a ton of lead flow and they're handing it over to their sales team in one big bucket, basically saying, reach in, grab what you can, work what you can, right? Get after it, right? Which is a terrible, terrible waste of time and effort, right? What that ultimately leads to is just low return on time and effort, right? So the metric time and effort equals obviously whatever their output is. And typically that's very, very low, meaning they're making tons of dials, working really, really hard, and the results lack, okay? This is also a big area of why setting teams never actually progress. So why you never get setters turning to closers, closers turning to sales leads, et cetera, and upward momentum in the org. It's because people churn, right? They're doing way too much input and lack a sustainable output in terms of what they're doing, okay? Number three, and this is probably one of the biggest ones that we see that most people don't actually look at or really understand. And it's going to be very, very short prospecting time thresholds and no time decay or reentry triggers, okay? The basis of this is essentially, if you look at your team, and I recommend all of you guys, especially if you guys have a larger sales team right now, you're going to want to find where the areas of drop-off are in terms of getting leads booked, right? So in the first 72 hours, what is that lead to booking percentage, right? From 72 hours to 10 days, 10 days to 30 days, 30 days to 90, 90 days to 6 months, 6 months to a year, right? As you kind of go farther out, right? Leads, even if they are dormant in the beginning for the first 30 days and then they reactivate, right, in the second 30 days or the second quarter or whatever the case may be, meaning they re-engage with your stuff, they re-opt in, whatever the case may be, these leads are buried. Nobody's actually getting to them. So what this is doing is over time, and if you take this exact model, right, 15% lead to booking first week, 8%, 4, 2, 1, and it keeps cutting, right? On average, about 80% of the leads that you're generating are just kind of ending up in dead zones, which are basically dead pools. They're just buried, right? They're not falling back into nurture. They're not falling back into the process. And there's no system set up that when they do reactivate or re-engage with you, they're not getting basically back into the front end of the sales process. Meaning your leads are not coming back or being recycled into the sales process when they do become reactivated, okay? Time decay triggers is, we're going to talk about drop-off points here in a little bit. Essentially, how long do you want the lead to have based on activity or basically stale, right? Before they actually drop out, get removed from the visibility of the sales team and drop back into marketing's hands to try and re-engage them, reactivate, and bring them back into the process, okay? People don't set this up because they don't map it out in the beginning and in the first place, which ultimately leads to them just building as they go, which ultimately leads to a ton of leads falling into dead pools with no actual tracking or reporting, which leads me to the next point, lack of visibility. I was on a webinar. There's a cool tool. Maybe I'll drop out some information after this that one of my friends is building. And they were talking about, lack of visibility, right? And the specific example I think they brought up was if you have 100 calls and, 20% of those calls go into conversations, what's your conversation to actual set percentage, right? If it's really, really low, that means that your reps need training on actual talk track, right? In the first couple 30 seconds of that conversation, right? Without visibility and being able to see this stuff, you can't coach on data, right? You're trying to make decisions and fix stuff. You're adding more basically automation. You're building a bunch of stuff that you may not even need, right? Also, one big piece to this is if you don't have visibility, especially on the setter side, most people hire new setters to bring into their organization first, right? And they want to build those people up. So where's your biggest opportunity cost if you don't have visibility on how well they're actually doing? It's in the beginning. You're giving them a ton of leads, a ton of opportunity, and they're converting at a much lower rate than somebody that might be, for example, an aged, successful setter, right? So if you don't have comparison and you don't have visibility, your opportunity cost is very, very high. All right. Now, moving to the next piece of this, few common, right? Complicated tech stack, high tech stack costs, slow execution timeframes, poor capacity management. Another big piece that we see with lack of visibility is you never know when your reps are at capacity. You never know who can handle more, who's doing well, who's not doing well. You never actually get to a point where you know if we have X amount of leads coming in, that means we need X amount of reps to be working these leads, which means you're hiring at random, right? When you feel like it, right? We want to put formulas around this, okay? Next piece is people create their own basically inefficient process to fix the problem they're running into because the company doesn't give them systems that are strong enough to keep them basically motivated and running at all speeds, right? Lastly, all of the stuff that gets built, right? If you're not designing, kind of mapping this out, and putting it together, it's all in somebody's head, right? And from what we see is people build their systems, that person leaves, somebody takes it over, it gets dropped onto the sales director, the CMO, or whoever in the organization has the most experience with it. They build a bunch of stuff, then the next person builds a bunch of stuff, and there's no basically rhyme or reason for any of this stuff coming together, okay? So I don't want to overcomplicate this and I want to get into it. I'm going to boil this down into its simplest form. And this next slide is going to be very, very important for all of you guys to understand, especially if you're looking at building any kind of system in your company. Okay. So every single system that we design, right? Every single foundational functionality piece of any kind of CRM system, automation, whatever the case may be, right? Whether it's your setters, your onboarding, your closers, your upsell renewal process, all these different pieces, right? They have 5 main points across the system, okay? You have entry points, you have drop-off points, you have re-entry points, you have exit points, and you have pass-off points, okay? And the reason I'm explaining this is because I'm about to show you guys exactly what we're going to build. And if you don't understand this, right, or you don't understand why it's mapped the way it is, you're not going to be able to build a sustainable system, okay? Entry points, just like it sounds, right? It's the start of the process, right? This could be a lead coming in. It could be an onboarding form gets filled out for your client success team. It could be a call is put on the closer's calendar, right? That's going to be the entry point that kicks off that part of the system or that engine, right? Drop-off points are going to be just like it sounds, right? This is where all of your leads or opportunities go to die, right? They're basically all the different points across the process that we either know are there or we don't know are there where buildup is happening, right? So for example, this could be leads that go 30 days without opening an email or booking a call, right? This could be your no-shows. This could be completed closing calls that are qualified but haven't moved forward. This could be your red zone, meaning a deposit down, or for example, somebody who has a contract out, right? If you look over a year of your pipeline, you're going to find there's big discrepancies in terms of where leads are ending up. You look at closed won, closed lost, completed, qualified, DQ, no show. You're going to have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of these opportunities sitting in these places, right? And these are your drop-off points, okay? The next piece I'm going to call out is the reentry point. This is when anybody gets re-engaged with. So let's say somebody no shows, right? They go down that process, the setter rebooks them. That is a re-entry point back into that system, okay? Another re-entry point, for example, could be new leads are coming into the setting team. The setting team's working these leads. Some of these leads like time decay out, for example, right? They go 15, 20, 30, 40 days with no activity from the setting team, right? Maybe they're 90 days past their create time, or basically from their create date, right? They drop off and nobody knows to work them, right? So in this case, if we have a reentry point, it would be when marketing is re-engaging them, they open an email, click a link, revisit the website, opt back in, right? We need to re-enter them back into that process to get them set. Exit points, very important. This is going to be for all of your bad data, do not contacts, DQs, right? This is a manual or automated process of actually filtering out data. So getting rid of it, okay? And then we have pass-off points. All a pass-off point is when responsibility transfers, right? From a setter to a closer to a CSM, right? A closer to marketing, okay? Does this make sense? Thumbs up? Okay, perfect. Now, what we're going to be designing today and what we're going to go over is going to include all 5 of these points, right? We're going to show you guys how to properly bring data in, how to set it up so that obviously you guys can control all of your data coming in, making sure that it comes in and gets triggered at the right time. We're going to talk about delegation. So what types of delegation we set up, whether it is a speed to lead process where we want to get to them very quickly, or it's a process of we want to nurture them, wait till they open X amount of emails or click a link or show intent, right? Then we delegate into the speed to lead process. We're going to talk about exit points. We're going to talk a lot about time decay, drop off points, how to re-engage and bring them back into the process. We're going to talk about pass off points, and we're going to talk about pass back points, which is basically if a closer is passing it back to a setter, for example, to get them rebooked. Okay. And of course, the re-entry process. Okay. Now we've designed over 300 of these things. The reason I'm pointing this out is because one, we never build anything without it being wireframed. And if you guys take one thing from this, when you're designing systems, don't touch anything until it's wireframed. Otherwise, you're going in and you're going to try and build a house and you're just going to be throwing stuff up everywhere it feels good. And you're going to get to the end of the line and you're going to realize your front door isn't even built yet. Right? Or you have windows on the roof. Whatever the case may be. Okay. So let's get into the weeds. Here's what we're going to talk about today, guys. We're going to go through step by step. You guys will be able to kind of take this. Like I said, we're going to send out a little bit further information on some of this stuff. You're going to be able to find some of it on my YouTube, etc. But we're going to get it out to you guys. So step one, we're going to talk about covering entry points for your setter system. Step two, delegation. Step three, prioritization. Step four, lead scoring. Okay. There's a ton of new features that have come out that make this really, really cool. We're going to show you guys how we do it. Power dialing, dialer integration, covering drop-off points, re-engagement, re-entry. Step 7 is going to be reporting and dashboards. And then step 8 is going to be coaching playlists, playbooks, and goal tracking, basically setter management. All right. At the end, we'll leave some room for Q&A. And Harrison, you keep an eye on the chat. Okay, cool. Perfect. All right, so let's get into it. So one of the biggest things that we transitioned away from, and if any of you guys are already built on a system, this is going to resonate quite a bit. We no longer set up any kind of triggers unless it's list-based. Okay. Now, what I mean by this is, for example, people have tons of different funnels. They have tons of different opt-ins, applications. People might come in from a lead magnet. They might come in from, for example, just a direct opt-in. They could be coming in from an application. They could be coming in from a link that you don't know about, right? There's tons and tons of different ways for leads to come into your system, especially on the front end. What we like to do is we set up an active list, okay, which basically filters all leads into this list. And this is the trigger we use to kick off delegation, nurture, all of these different pieces. Okay. Now, very, very simple, easy way for you guys to do this right away is you're going to use obviously lists for delegation triggers, right? It's easy to control. Every time you add a new funnel, a new lead magnet, a new whatever, you don't have to adjust anything, right? Because this list is going to pull it in automatically. Okay. The list becomes its trigger itself. Obviously, I just talked about that. Right? It's dynamic, so it's constantly updating. Nobody falls through the cracks. You're never going to have a point where maybe some of you guys have been, I know I've been, where we launch something and a week later we go, holy crap, none of these leads are being delegated to the sales team, right? And how you're going to set it up is basically create dates known. Normal form submissions is, one or more. You guys can leave this out if you're not using direct inside of HubSpot form submissions, and you can use a different trigger. Date of last meeting in meetings tools unknown, phone number is known, and you're going to use a unique identifier, right? So that's something that you have in all your forms or applications or whatever the case may be. Now, in the active filters, you can create as many groups as you want. So it can be this or this or this or this, right? And you're going to basically use this as your trigger to set up everything else. Now, the reason that we're going to be setting this up is because one, we're going to create detractor lists to pull out from this list. Right. And it's also going to be how we set up all of our prioritization. So your setters have a really clean process start to finish. Okay. Now, moving past this. So again, as we're building off this leads to be set list, right, we look at delegation in really two different ways. Okay. And everything eventually should get to the speed to lead delegation. Okay. When we have leads that are warm, right? So the way I'm thinking of a warm lead in our circumstance is going to be, for example, they have low to mid intent, right? They're not directly coming in trying to get on a call or anything along those lines, right? Maybe it's a lead magnet. They just think the lead magnet's cool. Maybe it's a newsletter, right? This is going to be your lower intent pieces. Now, tier 2, which is going to go straight to speed of lead, is going to be somebody, for example, filling out an application but not booking, right? Or an opt-in from a funnel. It's going to be all of your traffic that's coming in from direct intent, right? Process or assets or whatever the case may be, right? Now, tier 2 is going to go straight in the data point, hit delegation, go straight to speed of lead. Now, the reason that we don't want to delegate, especially if you guys have a big mix of these leads right away, is these tier 1 leads. If they download a lead magnet and you just start blowing them up, you could blow that relationship right away, right? We also want our reps prioritizing everything that hits speed to lead, meaning we don't want to muddy the entire bucket that they're getting access to in terms of lead delegation, okay? Now, the way that we do this activity-based delegation, if they're coming from a warm source, is we drop them into nurture campaigns, whatever the case may be, and we wait for activity triggers, meaning they revisit the website and they're a part of this list. They open 2 or more emails in X amount of time and they're a part of this list, right? They view X amount of pages. They watch a video more than 50%, right? This is when we're delegating to the sales team because now they have context of what this person's actually interested in and we can show intent, okay? If you have 10,000 leads and 5,000 are, hot, 5,000 are warm, right? We want the reps only contacting everybody that hits that hot status, okay? We want marketing to get them passed to the sales team when they're ready, okay? Now, the larger the team, obviously, the larger problem that this could create if you don't have this set up properly, okay? And it's a very, very easy build if you're using lists as triggers, okay? And you are setting up 2 different primary delegation points, okay, within workflows. Now, slight iteration for this, the only thing that I would call out is, for example, if you have some kind of basically delegation process based on qualification, right? This person's doing 10 million as opposed to this person's doing 2 million, right? The only way, third iteration of this would be obviously a qualification delegation prior to the speed to lead process, okay? So this is step number 2. Now, pro tip for this, if you're running an aggressive setting team and you want to make sure everybody's getting contacted in time, something that we've started implementing and have ran quite a few times and it works really well depending on the right sales team, right, is we add in logic to basically the delegation where if there's no outbound call measured within, for example, 2 hours of that lead being delegated, right, it gets pulled, a Slack notification goes to the team letting everybody know that Aaron Platt lost this lead, it's been reassigned to Dylan, right, and Dylan can start working that lead, right? It allows us to make sure that we're delegating as best as we can, right, to people that are going to hit these leads as quickly as possible by the time they hit that speed lead threshold, okay? Now, the cool thing about this, and something that we started doing later, was if that same lead closes, right, everybody here should have some kind of closed won channel where, the wins go in, blah, blah, blah. In the actual closed won, basically Slack channel or whatever the case may be, when the deal closes, it'll say lead lost by Aaron, lead reassigned to Dylan, lead closed by Dylan. So every time I lose a deal because I didn't get to it in time, it's going to notify the whole channel and notify the team, right? It's just a constant reminder to get to your leads quickly so you claim it, okay? Very simple to do. All you're going to do is put in some filters. You're going to do basically a time decay on that filter within the workflow. And one thing in terms of keys for this to work, you have to set it up so that that piece of the delegation only runs during your working hours, not on weekends or posts. So if a lead comes in at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever the case may be, right? We absolutely do not want those leads just falling into a trigger, waiting 2 hours and being reassigned because it's going to confuse the hell out of everybody, okay? So you need to make sure that it's set up to trigger and run only during working hours. And if anything comes in through midnight or whatever the case may be, or weekends, when it gets to the very next start time of working hours, let's say 9 a.m. Monday morning, right? There's still going to be that 2-hour delay before it checks to see if a call has been made or not before redelegation, okay? If you're on HubSpot and you want to figure out exactly how to get the most out of it, we hold webinars and masterclasses all the time, going very in-depth to this content, step-by-step breaking down exactly how you can get the most and build the systems that we're talking about. Go ahead and click the link and we'll notify you when the next webinar is. Moving along. Many of you guys have heard us talk about P1, P2, P3 system. It's the easiest, simplest way to get this set up right away and make your setting team very, very efficient and effective. Right? The way that we do this is we break the buckets into P1, P2, P3. Okay, and there's a few other buckets that we're going to talk about. Now you can do these buckets in a lot of different ways. The easiest way, like a version 1, never done this before, small team should set this up, is just based on time, right? Because you're going to be able to filter by quality and activity inside of the list. Okay. So for example, for P1, this is a smart view. Okay. So we're actually going into the contacts feature inside of HubSpot, and we're setting up a smart view that filters in the leads to be set list, right? The create date is less than 10 days ago, right? The setter owner is me. So it just filters to that person, right? And we set it up so there's no more than 2 outbound calls within any 24 hours. So as they're dialing through their list, the leads are disappearing if they hit them twice. And then they will reappear, right, the next day or the next 48 hours when we want them to contact them again. Okay. So they can just go clear out their list, move to the next. Clear out their list, move to the next. Okay. Now, these lists are going to filter out if anybody's been contacted X amount of times, which is a activity threshold, right? So if somebody's been contacted 20 times, meaning they've been called 20 times, there is no engagement. We're not getting any kind of conversation, no response, they're not clicking anything. We want to remove that from their list, right? We want to actively clean these lists for the setting team. So they're just working the highest, basically, probability of getting people set, right? We could keep them dialing on the leads that are most active, most relevant, most engaged. Okay. So that would be an activity. Time decay, like I said, it's going to kind of waterfall. P2 is going to be anything more than 10 days or under X amount of days, depending on your guys' lead volume or sales process, right? You could have this set up for basically 72 hours is P1, 10 days is P2, 30 days is P3. You can set this up however you want in terms of time thresholds. Just go based off of your volume, okay? If you have tens of thousands of leads, you can't have P1, P2, P3 over 90 days. It's not going to work, right? You got to set this up better. Okay. Now, when we're setting these lists up, like I said, I'm going to show you guys in the next step is how to actually prioritize and engage these leads. But this is how we do it. Okay. We're taking that active leads to be set list, the one that we built earlier, right? And we're creating smart views around this, and we're setting it up so the setting team can just every morning hit P1, P2, P3, and they can basically clean out their lead lists as quickly as we want them to. Okay. Obviously, if anybody books a call or does anything in terms of a milestone, they're going to be removed from these lists as well. All right. Moving along, a few other priority lists that we really like to use is going to be my no-shows. So anytime a setter gets a call booked, right, this would be a pass back or a re-entry, right? Point is whenever a setter sets a call for, say, for example, let's call it Joseph, right? Joseph marks that deal as no-show, right? It's going to automate a quick message or maybe a voicemail drop from Joseph saying, hey, I'm going to have Mateus reach back out to you to see if we can find a better time, right? Then that workflow is going to pass it back to Mateus. Mateus is going to get a notification, and all of those basically leads or no-shows are going to pile up in this my no-show list, okay? So that would be your 4th smart view to create for your team. If they obviously rebook or do anything along those lines, they're obviously going to get removed from this list. And there are time thresholds here as well. Okay. So for example, how long we actually want to rework these no-shows before they actually get passed back to marketing to try and re-engage them. Okay. The last piece, which I'm not sure why this isn't showing up, would be my up and coming appointments. So a lot of you guys probably want your setting team to confirm appointments. Maybe you guys have confirmation specialists, whatever the case may be. This is going to be any appointment that I set, okay, that's up and coming in the next 72 hours. Okay. It's going to automatically load into the smart view, right? I'm going to be able to go through and power dial and try and basically confirm these appointments just as I would, except I'm not going to have to find who's up and coming. I'm not going to have to create my own way of doing this. It's going to make it really easy. As soon as I confirm, cancel, or reschedule that appointment, it's going to disappear from this list, right? And we're good to go. Okay. Now, a few, layers up from this, you can also start tracking your show rates based on confirmation status. So if they were confirmed prior to the call, what's your actual show rate? If we couldn't get them confirmed, what's your show rate, right? You can start basically setting these things up. You can also start pulling basically booking to confirmation percentages for each setter, right? There's a ton of metrics that you can start driving from this as you guys start to get this built out, okay? Now, moving along here. So smart views, one of the things that many people get wrong. One, you want to set it up as simple for your team, right? This is how we set it up. They come into their contacts, it views P1, P2, P3, my no-shows, my up-and-coming bookings. That's their views, right? That is quite literally their views, okay? When they click into these views, right, or they add these views, whenever you're building these smart views and you're saving them, you're going to be able to select the columns that show up, right? So name, email, last email open date, last page view, last time of last session, all these different filters, right? Your lead score, your quality score, your activity score, all these different things. So prior to obviously dialing or doing anything, you want to make sure that all the columns that are going to be used to filter the best leads to the top of each one of these lists are available for them to see, right? Also, if they're constantly trying to figure out source or what was the last thing they viewed or the lead magnet they downloaded, you're going to want to make sure that all these columns are visible in these views and saved. So all you have to do with your setting team is have them add these views and they can start doing it. Okay. They can start rocking and rolling. All right. To do that, you're just going to go in, save the views. You're going to click into any of those views, hit edit columns, select the columns you want to do, move them around, right? Hit save. You're good to go. Okay. Moving along. So this is something that I'm going to talk about. There's a few new things that are rolling out. And I want to break this down because people get, again, to the slide that I had probably 10 or 15 slides ago. People get this stuff wrong because they just overcomplicate the hell out of it. Okay. We're going to talk about 3 different scores, right? And how we set them up and the easiest way to do it, regardless of where you're at. Okay. Regardless of where you're at. Okay. So inside of HubSpot, right, I just want to point this out. There is, if you go into properties, and I'll just pull this open real quick for you guys. If you go into contacts, objects, manage properties, right, and you're creating any kind of property, whenever you're doing this, you can actually go in and create a score. Very, very simple, right? Positives, negatives, easy to do. Okay. And the reason I'm pointing this out and why I split from the presentation is because the next slide, you guys are going to need to know this. Okay. So very simple, right? Positive versus negative categories all in one property. What this allows to do, it allows us to set up time decay, right? It allows us to retract score. For example, on an activity score, if in the last 30 days, they've opened less than X amount of emails, or they have less than number of activity or whatever the case may be, right? You can set up parameters around unique applications, right? So over underscores, plus 10 if they have this, minus 10 if they have this, etc. Right? You can also do the same for time frames. So the way that you can filter your scoring is actually really, really easy. Now, there's a new feature that's coming out. It's freaking sweet. It's really, really cool. And it kind of just makes it really, really easy within HubSpot, right? You can build your scores. You can trigger and basically track and do all the nurture and basically routing to sales. So again, your drop-off points as well as your re-entry points can be set up in this scoring now in the logic, right? And then it'll also track your iteration. So you can start to actually get forecasted values on your lead scores. Okay. Which is sexy for anybody that is a systems nerd. Okay. It's nice. You don't have to do a bunch of custom bullshit to try and get this done. Okay. Now, the easiest way to think about this, guys, and the best way you guys can set this up, okay? The first thing we're going to set up is an activity score. So there's 3 scores we're setting up: activity, qualification, and then we're rolling both into a lead score. Okay? Simple, easy. Marketing understands it. Sales understands it, right? It makes it very, very simple as opposed to trying to do all of this in one lead score where it just gets over convoluted, complicated, and just doesn't do anything for you guys, right? The first piece is going to be our activity score. Okay. X amount of page views, email opens, meetings, whatever the case may be within time period, right? Positives, AKA plus points, right? So more than 3 emails open plus X amount of points. Number of page views plus X amount of points. Very, very simple, easy to understand. The same parameters would apply for your negatives, right? This is your time decay threshold on this score, right? If less than X amount of page views, if less than X amount of email opens, if less than X amount of whatever in the last 30, 60, 90 days, right? Negative points, subtract. Okay. This is going to be your activity score. Qualification score, it's the easiest score to set up, right? You're either going to do this via an application or as the individual or the prospect goes through the sales process and reps are collecting data, right? This is all it is basically, if you have annual revenue buckets, 900 to a million, 500 to 800, et cetera, you're going to give scores based on where they fall, right? Or minus scores based on where they fall, how they answer questions, what they have, right? So for example, for us, right, it would be number of sales reps on the team, tech stack they're using, right? Annual revenue, et cetera, right? This would be our qualification score. right? Now, the reason we build these separately is because the way that we build our actual lead score is an aggregate of the two. I hope you guys are following because this just makes it really easy. It took us forever to make this simple, but this is how you're going to set this up, right? If you have an A+ score, right? All that means is that the lead is super active and they qualify, right? And this can fall down, right? And you can build different tiers of scoring as you kind of figure out your lead scoring parameters and how you want to set this up. Okay. Simple. Take some time to get used to. You're going to have to play with it, but it works. All right. Now, step number 5. Okay. So once we actually have our entry points covered, right? We're triggering everything based off lists. They're going through the proper delegation channels, right? They're getting to the sales team, obviously the setting team, in a very efficient and effective manner, right? They have prioritization. They're able to filter these lists based on activity. So last email open, last click, last page view, all of these different things. The next component is we absolutely don't want our setters clicking and dialing. It's horrible, right? Why would I want 2 minute per dial when I could have 30 seconds per dial with no gap in between, right? Makes it very, very simple, okay? So step 1, right? If you're using something like Alloware, which is our preferred dialer, I would say 90%, 95% of our clients use Alloware. Makes it really easy. Download the Chrome extension, right? They're going to click into their view. They're going to filter for whatever parameters they want. So if they want last marketing email open in their P1 list, it's going to filter it top down by obviously when they open these emails or revisited the page view or when they entered or whatever the case may be, lead score, quality score, activity score, right? And then they're going to click the Chrome extension, add a power dialer, and they're going to hit go. It's that simple. Instead of opening the P1 list and just calling in whatever order it comes in, right? Because if you have a P1 list of 10 days and on day 9, Dylan here becomes super active, opening all the emails, watching, clicking on pages, going to the website, whatever the case may be, that should probably be your first dial, right? Unless a brand new lead comes in first, right? But without the ability to filter this, you can't do that, right? Somebody's going to have to look through, try and find it, click, whatever. This just makes it super easy, right? Now, the way that we kind of teach, especially when people are just getting used to this, dial P1 first, then P2, then P3. Again, if you set up the filters properly, after they double dial or they hit that lead twice in the day, it'll disappear for 24 hours. And unless they get the call booked or anything along those lines, marked as bad data, do not contact, any of those things, it's going to reappear in the list that it's supposed to be in, right, after X amount of time. Okay. Third group, P3. Fourth group, my no-shows, rinse and repeat, right? If you're using the appointment confirmation piece, they're also going to filter that in throughout the day, all right? Beginning of day, always filter for lead score. Yeah, so in the beginning of the day, filter for lead score, right? It's really easy. Midday, you're going to have all the activity from all the stuff that's happening throughout the day. So a lot of your leads are going to start filtering themselves to the top of these lists, right? And then end of day, just go by, make sure you hit everybody that came in today, right? Quite simple. Last points, there's a few things that Alloware, and then again, there's a cool tool that's being developed, and I won't talk too much on that, but every single time your setters are adding to their power dialer, they need to make sure that their queue is completely empty, right? So it's just a golden rule of thumb, always clear out the power dialing queue before refreshing the list. Make sure to refresh the numbers 2 to 3 times a year. So if you're using any kind of dialer, make sure your numbers are doing well. Local presence turned on. And then one thing that we actually tested, so this happened about 2 weeks ago. Mateus here, his call to connect percentage dropped to like 3% or something like that overnight. And we were trying to understand why. Evan on our team basically was like, hey, it's because our name on the number is sales momentum. Get rid of that. As soon as we got rid of it, the very next day, it jumped up over like 10, 15%. So just small thing. And many people do it without realizing that they do it, right? Do not use your business as the line name and what you're calling through. Just don't do it. We've tried it. Everything plummets in terms of connect rate. Okay. Now, last thing I'll say, and again, maybe I'll send out some information on this. Alloware just dropped an update so that you can basically add and take away things to a dialer, right? So instead of having to load your list yourself, right, you can set up automation to load it for you. Essentially eliminating the need for your reps to even be inside of their contact smart views altogether, right? If lead comes in brand new, load to the top of the list, right? If they're on a call and they're talking to somebody, right, the very next dial is the best next lead for them to call, right? It's a brand new feature, pretty cool to set up. You guys can play with it, something that we wanted to call out, right? With engagement, with activity scoring, with lead scoring, you can also set this to go to the top of the list, the middle of the list, the bottom of the list. It's really easy. It's directly inside the workflows, okay? So a more sophisticated version of this would be your setters just sit in their dialers. That's it, right? The leads are being loaded for them, okay? Now, a few call outs to this that we really like to set up is after X amount of times, for example, outbound no answer, set up an automated SMS to go out for the rep instead of them having to sit there and do it themselves, right? You can start to set up based on the number of outbound calls with no actual connection or no conversation or no move forward, what sequences you actually want to enroll them into, right? It's going to help a lot. And if you guys notice, this is just all about how efficient and effective can we be at working the data, right? Every single time your rep stops to send a text or do a voicemail or whatever the case may be, right? It's just more effort going into something that's not a conversation, right? And we want to do the best we can without over automating the system to help work the system for the setting team, right? Now, the caveat to that is don't go overboard with any of this stuff in terms of automation. It'll wreck your lead to booking percentage more than help it, okay? Now, moving along here. So covering drop-off points and re-engagement and re-entry, okay? The biggest one that we see on the front end of this process, right, is when reps are calling leads nonstop, right? Let's say I call somebody 20 times, there's no answer, no response, no nothing, right? Those leads are just still sitting and building up within the setter's basically list, right? We never actually remove that lead, hand it back to marketing, right? Let them re-engage that lead. And then once they become active again, drop them back into the front after the list, right? Or drop them back into the front end of the P1 list, right? So what ends up happening is reps are spending a lot of time and energy working stuff that we just know maybe they're on vacation, maybe they're not there anymore, whatever the case may be. They're just burning their time and energy on these leads. So on the front end, there's going to be 2 time decay thresholds that we're going to set up, okay? Now, the first one, it's simple. It's based on number of outbound calls with no response, no conversation, no call set, right? Typically, we set it to 20. Some people like to set it to 30. Some people like to set it lower if it's more of a B2B, right? But you're going to set this up so if this is met, right, it's going to pull it from their list, drop it back into a segmented list for marketing, okay? And marketing is going to have campaigns set up to basically re-engage with this list. Now, the way, like I said, we're going to do this is across the entire system and everything that you guys are setting up, whether it's the setter, the closer, any of these things, all of these time decay and drop-off points should lead back to segmented lists and automated campaigns for marketing to hit, right? You don't want to just drop everything back because maybe this person already had a discovery call. Maybe this person never even booked a call. Maybe this person actually had a contract, right? You want to set up these segmented lists so marketing knows exactly which list they're contacting and they can speak directly to where that person was at, right? Additionally, when we're setting up these drop-off points, if we're dropping everything into one big list, right, our re-entry triggers, it's just not going to work, right? If they have never booked a sales call and they're still in that front-end prospecting piece, we drop them out. Marketing starts emailing them, doing all this stuff. Maybe they show up to a webinar, whatever the case may be, right? Now we know those 2 triggers are the triggers to push them back to the setter where it came from, right? And revisualize that lead for the sales team, right? So this is how we're going to be setting up everything. Now, again, the best way to do this is active lists, right? And then when we're setting up that leads to be set or anything along those lines, basically set it up in the filters is not a part of blank time decay list, right? Or blank drop-off list, right? Now, again, because you're using a list or whatever the case may be, you can trigger all the campaigns, automation, all of that stuff. And then inside of that workflow, if the goal is met, for example, X amount of these emails are opened, link click, whatever the case may be, redelegation or retrigger, right? Now, the only thing that I'll call out here as well is, especially on the front end, right? If somebody time decays out, drops off, activity threshold, whatever the case may be, and they hit this list and they go X amount of time, usually for us, it's like 60 to 90 days is typically what we set up. People can filter down, make it wider, or whatever. If there's no engagement, right? Like maybe they've opened 1 out of the 30 emails we sent, or they have opened 0, right? That's when we want them going to the dead pool, right? That's when we want them getting pulled, so there's no way that they can basically constantly keep going in this cycle, right? And so they don't just keep sitting in this list, right? Cool. Again, best way to do this, use lists, use campaigns, same structure, follow through. Every single drop-off point, that list must have a re-entry point based on where that lead or where that pool came from. Okay? Moving along here, reporting. So I'm going to jump into, can you guys still see this? Perfect. All right. So we're going to go primarily on the setter piece, right? One of the best things in terms of setter management, like I talked about, you're going to want to get 2 of these boards set up. The first one that we always like to build is going to be your sales leaderboard, right? The second one is going to be more of your management board. So management, setting management, okay? But essentially, the way that we're going to be setting this up is, one, we're going to be tracking those buckets. So those P1, P2, P3 buckets, right? So the count of leads that are in each one of those buckets for each individual setter, right? The count of calls they've made in that bucket, right? The average number of times they're touching those leads in that bucket, and the average time it takes them to get those leads set in that bucket, okay? The reason that we're going to set this up is because what you'll notice over time is your average number of times contacted will plummet, right? If somebody has 1,000 or 2,000 leads on the front end, right? You know that this stuff, you either need more setters or whatever the case may be. You can make data-driven decisions on these buckets. Now below, obviously booked calls, conversion rates, show rates, close rates for all of your sets, right? We want to be tracking, obviously, our setter cash today versus yesterday, this week versus last week, total this month versus last month, inbound versus outbound. So what amount of leads are actually self-booking versus us going outbound after them, right? Today, this week, this month, in terms of cash collected, right? Total sets in terms of inbound, what the inbound close, or basically show rate, close rate, all of that stuff is for the setting team, right? Same thing for total. So total sets or outbound sets, right? Roll it into the totals, and then we break everything down as such. So we can get our overarching show rates, close rates, qualification rates, all of that stuff directly for each individual as well as team roll up. Okay. So in terms of setting, the way that, or reporting on what we like to do, especially when initially building out, people get lost in all the metrics, right? One of the things that I would say, and something that can kind of help you guys just make this super, super easy. Let me see if I've got it set up. Before going into your build or designing the system or doing anything along those lines, pick the metrics you want to track, right? I've got a long video on YouTube. You guys can go to it, watch how we kind of put together some of these reports. But unless you know how you're going to build these reports during the actual implementation of the system, you're not going to be able to get the metrics that you want, or it's going to be very difficult, inaccurate. You're not going to be confident, etc. Okay. I had something, but it doesn't look like it's out here. So we're going to keep moving along. Going back to the presentation. Last thing, so coaching playlists and goal tracking. Really, really easy. If you guys have a setting team, closing team, a CSM team, a support team, anything along those lines, this is a newer feature inside of HubSpot. So one thing that you can do is you can come into the actual coaching playlist piece, right? And this is just a demo account, so there's not going to be data in here, but you can start to build these playlists. So for example, we have our fulfillment QC, we have our sales QC, right? And what this does, if you're a sales manager, you can come in here and you can follow or unfollow these lists. Anytime a setter drops a call or a tracked term triggers a call to be put into these coaching playlists, right? It'll notify the manager and they can do all their QC review, everything directly in these lists. The setters can follow their calls in the next list, and all your manager has to do is watch the call, QC it, drop it into the next list, and everybody gets notified. So really, really simple, easy way. It'll make managing and doing QC really, really simple and easy. Obviously, all your calls recorded, et cetera, are going to be inside of HubSpot, but this just allows you guys to actually do the QC directly in here. And you guys can pull up calls, show calls, go back to calls. It just makes it really, really easy. Okay. And when you're done, Obviously, it'll notify the setter to put it in there. When you get a new call, it'll populate, you'll get a notification. Okay. Next piece I want to talk about is setting up goals. So when you guys are looking at your setting team or closing team or whatever the case may be, right? Let's say your goals are going to be outbound calls, talk time, sets, show rate, close rate, whatever the case may be, right? Revenue, I don't know, cost per acquisition. You can even go to marketing, you can go to CS, right? There's a goal feature in here and you can create from scratch or whatever the case may be, and you can select any kind of object type that you want. So if I want, for example, call, select property, I want total aggregate of call duration for the month, right? That's the goal that we want to hit. Hey guys, we want to hit 1,000 hours, right? I can go in here, hit the sum, unit of measurement, right? I want to do hours, right? Date property, activity date, tracking method, boom, hit next. And I can give the goal a name, select individual users, or I can just select the team, right? So setting team. Okay. Now, what this allows you to do is once you create that goal, if you click into it, one, it's going to give you all of the data for it. You can also break it down by user. So you can see the percentage that is basically each person is putting their talk time into the overarching goal. And what this will also do is it's set up so whoever the owner of the goal is, it'll notify whenever it's overachieved, underachieved, on track, off track, whatever the case may be. And you can roll all of this directly into reporting. Okay. So you want to be clear on what goals, right? What metrics, how you're setting this up, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, wrapping this all up, and quick recap. This is what we covered. We're going to send over a few information, such as some documentation, make this a little easier for you guys. Yeah. So last thing I'll point out, here's the deal. Setter engine is simple to manage, but very difficult to implement, especially if you're planning to implement the rest of it, the closer engine, the show rate engine, follow-up, onboarding, client journey, tracking, etc. Right? The reality is that successfully implementing all these primary components will have the highest chances to winning. Those that don't, we'll see what time tells, right? We'll be hosting more of these masterclasses in the future. And further into the sales process is really what we're going to be covering. So keep an eye out. You guys are going to get some emails. Q1, we're going to be going over closer engine. Q2, we're going to be going over show rate follow-up engine. And then 2025, sometime in that time period, we're going to be going over setter and closer manager engines. Okay. So with that being said, if you want to skip the learning curve, dive straight into what the full momentum operating system looks like and talk to somebody on our team so we can just basically drive you straight through it. You can go ahead, scan the link. If the team can go ahead and drop the link in the chat, that would be awesome. We'd be looking forward to talking to you guys. And yeah, now's time. I know we're at time. We're a little bit over, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop one in the chat. Or if there are questions in the meantime that came in through the chat, I'd be happy to jump in.